This is the biggest movement in India's post-independence history.
Yeah. I reject this whole notion that FIR ruins anybody's life.
इसने लड़की को थप्पड़ मारा है, लड़की को थप्पड़ मारा है इन्होंने अभी आप यहाँ देख सकते.
The Cockroach Junta Party is mostly protesting.
Protesters took to being called cockroaches, it's not exactly flattering.
Every time there is a protest in India, the same argument begins. One side says protesting is our constitutional right, the other says the government can stop it. So who's right? I looked for the answer in the only place that I could settle this debate, the Constitution of India, obviously. So I've searched India's constitution looking for one thing, the right to protest. And I couldn't find it. Because the constitution never actually says that Indians have a right to protest. Which raises an even bigger question. If the constitution never gives Indians the right to protest, why do millions of us believe that we have one? Let's understand it. So if the constitution never says right to protest, where did it come from? The obvious place to look is the constitution itself, but the more I searched, the stranger it became. The constitution protects free speech, it protects the right to assemble peacefully, it protects the right to form associations, but nowhere does it say every citizen has the right to protest. So this right didn't simply appear out of nowhere, right? It came from somewhere. To find it, we have to go back long before the constitution. Before India became democracy, it was a colony. We all know that. For nearly 200 years, Indians couldn't vote out the people who ruled them. Because the people making the laws weren't chosen by Indians, they were chosen by Britain. So if people wanted change, they couldn't wait for the next election. They had to make themselves impossible to ignore. They marched, they boycotted British goods, they held public meetings, they went on strikes, and sometimes they knowingly broke laws that believed they were unjust. One of the most famous examples was the Salt March. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi walked nearly 390 kilometers to the Arabian Sea, not because India had run out of soil, but because British had made it illegal for Indians to make their own. By picking up a handful of salt from the beach, Gandhi broke the law in front of the world. It wasn't just an act of defiance, it inspired millions to change colonial rule peacefully. By the time India finally became independent, protest wasn't just another political activity. It had become one of the reasons India was free in the first place. So when the Constituent Assembly sat down to write the constitution, they had a difficult question to answer. How do you protect something that helped create our nation without allowing it to become chaos? And that question shaped one of the most important parts of the Indian Constitution, which is Article 19. When India's constitution finally came into force in 1950, it still didn't create a right to protest. Instead, it protected three different freedoms: the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom to assemble peacefully, and the freedom to form associations. At first, they seem like completely separate rights, but think about what a protest actually is. A protest is people speaking together in public for a common cause. It's speech combined with peaceful assembly, often organized through an association. The Constitution never connects these rights together, but over the years the Supreme Court did. Case by case, judgment by judgment, the court made something clear. If citizens have the right to speak and they have the right to gather peacefully, and they must also have the right to speak together. And that's where India's right to protest comes from. Not from a single sentence, but from where different constitutional freedoms work together. The idea was strengthened over decades through landmark judgments, cases like Kameshwar Prasad, Himmatlal, Ramlila Maidan. But if the courts recognize this right, another question appears. Why the protest still stopped? Where does the government get its power? The answer lies in one word: reasonable. Okay, let's understand that. The Constitution doesn't give anyone an unlimited right to do anything. You have freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean you can threaten someone. You have freedom of movement, but that doesn't mean you can drive on the wrong side of the road. In the same way, the right to protest also has limits. A protest has to be peaceful. It cannot involve violence. It cannot involve weapons. In some situations, the government can restrict a protest if it believes it's necessary to protect public order, public safety, or the sovereignty and integrity of India. But here is the important part. The government doesn't have unlimited power either. The real question isn't whether India has the right to protest. We already know that answer too. The real question is, where should the line be drawn? We started this video with a simple question. Does India's constitution give us the right to protest? The surprising answer is not in so many words. The phrase right to protest appears nowhere in the constitution. But over decades, its meaning was built by something even more fundamental. The right to speak, the right to gather peacefully, and the right to come together for a common cause. If you enjoy this documentary and want to understand these kind of stories behind the headlines, not just headlines themselves, consider subscribing. There's a lot more to uncover, and thank you for sticking till the end.